Welcome to the Mojo Mundi podcast, where it's all about magic, manifesting, and movement. I'm Ginny Watts, the Dancing Witch, and this episode is titled, Allowing My Purpose to Unfold. If I just knew what my purpose was, is a phrase I've heard from clients, friends, and family members. Interestingly, this question is often followed by an expression along the lines of, I don't like my job, or I don't contribute anything, I'm just living my life. Having a life's purpose is intertwined with finding meaning in our lives. Yet many Americans believe that our purpose is something we were put on earth to do, something that we must do successfully, that we must complete, and something that is also secret, that has to be ferreted out. I don't think our purpose is something we do. I think it's something we are. What my clients and friends and family members are actually expressing is an awareness that how they are moving through their days is not resonating with the vibration of their soul. In physics, resonance occurs when the vibration of an object is amplified by the presence of an external vibration that matches the object's vibration. In other words, when the vibration of how we are living our life matches the vibration of our soul, the intensity of the vibration of both increases. When that happens, we feel the amplification as joy, harmony, physical energy, confidence, connection, belonging, and more. I recently invited my good friend Deenya to join me in conversation about dance, magic, and spirituality. Deenya began the conversation by addressing this most powerful issue that humans face, this issue of purpose. Here is how she described her recent explorations.
The thing that I've been focusing on lately is this idea of living the life that we choose, that we want to live, and how to use spirituality and somatic movement and kind of everything around us to enable that.
In that one sentence, Deenya has provided a powerful definition of purpose. Instead of defining our life's purpose as a job we've been given to complete in this lifetime, Deenya identifies that our purpose is ours to determine, and that it is nothing more nor less than living intentionally through connection with deity, what she calls spirituality, as humans in the physical plane, which she refers to through somatic movement, in the complex web of creation, the everything around us. Let me say that again. Deenya identifies our purpose as living intentionally through connection with deity, as humans in the physical plane, in the complex web of creation. Isn't that, after all, what co-creating is? We are co-creating the life we want to live, and through that co-creation, we bring diversity and ever-evolving designs into being. When we do this, we are resonating with creator energy within, and we amplify that vibration within us and all around us. How then does it look to be our purpose? Since it isn't a job, there is no culmination or list of tasks. Rather, life purpose is a process. It is waking up to the awareness that the spiritual is within us and all around us every day. Life purpose is deciding to live every day as an exploration of deepening connection with spirit through every small act. It may lead us to do something, maybe even something big in the world. If that happens, the doing is only a fleeting byproduct of life purpose, because life purpose lies in how we choose to live each moment. Deenya offers us a beautiful glimpse into how life purpose comes into awareness and how to allow this awareness to transform us.
I retired. I stopped working. I had time on my hands. And I started thinking about who I was and who I wanted to be. And part of it was I realized that in my working life in the corporate world, I thought the whole time that I had been kind of managing how much I wanted to give. And I realized that when I walked away from it, that I had actually given a whole lot more than I had ever intended. And I'd kind of lost myself. I didn't really know who I was anymore. And I felt like I had all these layers of training, like not only societal training and the training you get within your family, but then working at these different companies. They all had a culture that they wanted you to be part of and that they wanted you to help propagate. And in the course of all that, I just lost track of I had learned to do things to do well in those environments, and I'd kind of lost track of how I actually felt about those ways of engaging with people. I had sacrificed more of who I was. I knew that I was playing a game. I knew that I was showing up at work and playing a role, and I wanted to be successful at work, so I would kind of fine-tune the way that I played the game. And in the course of all of that, I thought I still knew who I was. And what I realized when I walked away from it was that in the course of trying to become really good at playing this game and trying to, get the promotion or trying to be considered very good at my job, I had gone to such an extreme that I had lost my anchor, and that I'd really just kind of almost become the role that I was playing instead of playing a role. I sat at home and kind of looked at myself and said, what do you really like to do? And what do you really believe? And, for all these years, I had aspired to be this person who would do well in this environment. And now it's like I have absolutely no interest in that. But I'm not sure what's still here. So it was this, and in the course of that, I'd started dancing, and it was kind of my refuge while I was working in my corporate world. And it was one of those things that I never told the people that I worked with because it was mine. I gave them so much, but this was mine, and I didn't want to be asked about it. I didn't want people to know about it. Part of it was I felt like it was incongruent with the image I was trying to create at work. But part of it was this is mine, and it's where I go to escape, and it's where I go to release and relax. And I don't really want the two worlds merging. I wanted them very separate. But so I'm sitting at home. I'm still dancing, but I've on some level lost my passion for dancing. I'm trying to get really good at the mechanics of it rather than feeling how it feels in my body. And so the first thing I noticed was that I had shut down a lot of my emotions because you get beat up a lot in you get beat up a lot in life, but especially in the corporate world, there's a lot of manipulation. People who you think are your friends aren't your friends. There's a lot of disappointment. So I had shut down a lot of my emotions. And the first thing was I just wanted to feel my emotions again. And then they kind of were a little out of control. I started just crying for no particular reason. I think it was just sadness over realizing where I was. But I really felt like I didn't understand my emotions, and they were taking me over now almost in the same way that this other environment had taken me over. And I was sad about things, and I was angry about things. And that's when, COVID, I stopped working a year before COVID. So I had 1 year where I was just kind of happily going along my way. And then I had extreme fear when COVID started appearing. And I was afraid for myself, and I was afraid for my husband who has an autoimmune disease, and I was afraid for my family and my friends, and I was just afraid. And I became even more distrustful of people. And this idea of staying home was like the greatest gift that I could have ever received. I know for so many people that was so hard, but for me it was like, I don't have to go meet people, and I don't have to pretend like I'm fine, and I can just sit in this and try to figure it out. And it was during that time that I also started really exploring my spirituality. When I worked, I was such a workaholic that I didn't really have any free time. I had interests, and I would, maybe for a couple hours every 3 months, I would pick up a book or something. But I really hadn't explored what I thought spirituality was or what I wanted it to be. And so I kind of took a deep dive into that. I found this online community. It's called the Sisters Enchanted, and it's like an online Wiccan community. I think they would probably describe themselves more as like witches and witchcraft than Wiccan specifically. But, it was basically a self-help group. It was using things like tarot and astrology and, lunar cycles to understand who you are and to understand what you would like out of life and what would make you happy. And so I got really involved in that community, and I was taking all these classes. And, I have one of those personalities where if you give me classes, I will dive deep. And if I don't have like a game plan in front of me, I'll stumble around a little bit. So it really helped me to have somebody say, here, let's start here and let's explore this. And so I was taking these classes, and I was starting to think about what I really wanted, and I was thinking about, what brings me joy. And it was things like I love being outside. I love exercising my body. I love being with a group of close friends. I'm not one of those people who likes the big party. I like the intimate conversations. And they would give us exercises to do, like, who am I? What do I value? And the first time they gave me that question, I just looked at the page for the longest. I was like, where do I start? What do I value? What is the most important thing to me? And it took me a really long time to start putting things down and feeling like they were right and feeling like they resonated with me. And not right in the sense of somebody else telling me what they were right, but that it felt right to me. Then I took a class called Ishtara that is very specifically about expressing and connecting with your emotions through movement. And that really got me down this path of, when I'm dancing, it is so much more cathartic for me. And I think it's more beautiful for an audience to watch when you are really connected into your emotions. And if you think about, who we think the great actors are and who we think the great musicians are, we talk a lot about you can feel, they help you feel the feeling, they bring it alive in a way. And I started realizing that as much as I thought I had been doing that with my dance, and as much as I had been trying to do that with my dance, that because I had shut all my emotions off, I was much more mechanical than I wanted to be. And that I wanted to be not only kind of emotionally and spiritually, but also from a performance standpoint. I just think it's that much more beautiful when somebody can bring you into their world. So then I started down this path of really integrating, when I was exploring different things and I was trying to understand myself on different topics, how I felt about things, I would put on music and I would dance to it. If I was sad or if I was angry or, whatever emotion it was I was feeling at the time, I would put on a Spotify playlist and I'd just kind of keep going until I found a song that my body wanted to move to. And then I would dance to it and I would pour everything I had into it. What Ishtara taught us was that you do that and then you also have another song afterwards. It kind of after you've done this release, it puts you in a good place, in a positive place. And so I started looking for these combinations of songs that would help me do that. And then I started learning about tapping. I started just signing up for everything that was free on the internet. And I found, EFT tapping, and I attended one of their summits, an annual summit where they had all these different speakers. And I just went to all of the talks that I could make. And I went to a talk, and I think it was about I am not enough. And at the time I thought, this is not my issue. I am confident. I've had this whole career. I know that I can take care of myself. I know that I'm a competent person. This isn't my issue. And I can't even remember who the speaker was now, but they took us through this talk. Basically they're saying these words and you're tapping at the different points on your body. And at one point I just started crying. I was like, wow, I think this actually is one of my things. But I had, again, if you had asked me, I would have said, no, this isn't my issue. I have other issues. So then I just started seeking out all of it was let's just see what I react to. And so I went down this path of just trying to kind of explore where my reactions were, and that was how. And then I learned about Enneagrams. I was just kind of like trying everything, trying to get a little bit better understanding of who I was and why I was doing things and why I was reacting the way I was. And eventually I got to a place where I was like, this has been so transformational for me. It changed me so radically from somebody who was afraid and very reactive and really distrustful of people. And about now the vaccines are coming out. And my husband has been dying to get out. Like, if staying home for him was really difficult, whereas for me, I was like, I could do this forever. But he started wanting to go out, and I was like, so it was kind of a test of like, how much have I really learned about myself and how much can I manage it was like I was happy to be feeling my emotions again. But for a while, I was really unpredictable. And it was nice that I didn't have to be out in social settings because I didn't actually trust how I would react. And so at this point, I'm like starting to go out and I'm like, how am I doing? How is this feeling? And I realized that this journey that I had been on I knew that I had a long way to go still, but I was amazed at how far I had come. And it had taken about a year at this point. So it wasn't quick. So I kind of realized how much it had helped me. And then I started thinking about, I would like to share this with other people because it's helped me so much. And I also felt, as a dancer and as a dance teacher, it's like when you are teaching something, you have to internalize it so much more than as a student because you have to be confident in what you're saying. You have to know where you're going with it. And I also felt like it would help me continue my journey if I could help other people go through some of the experiences that I had been through. So I ended up going to the Sisters Enchanted, and I said, you've got all these amazing classes, but there's no movement class. How would you feel about offering a movement class, and how about if I'm your person? And they were like, it's funny that you should bring this up because we've been thinking the same thing. And they had been looking at several people and they hadn't quite found the right fit. And they also really liked to pick people who'd been in their community because they felt like, we understand the environment that they're trying to create, which, in a lot of ways is like the corporations I worked for. But this was one that I was really engaged in, and this is one that I really, I remember working for companies where they would say, we want to teach everybody empowerment. And I'm like, okay, but every time somebody brings up an idea that's not yours, you shoot it down, and that is not empowering, and yet you want me to go tell these people that they're empowered and they should feel empowered. I was like, this is just going to create problems. You're setting people up, and that happened a lot because they liked the word empowerment, but they didn't really understand what control that meant. They had to share, at least, maybe give up. But so I started teaching for the Sisters Enchanted, and that was like a whole nother fabulous next step. And then in the course of that, I started reaching out to different women here in Bozeman, and we set up a women's retreat weekend. And, first we had the dialogue there were three of us originally who were going to do this. And we had this whole debate about what it should be about and how it should be oriented and what topics it should cover. And it was fascinating. Like, I was obviously very clear on my point of view, but it was fascinating to hear their points of view and then kind of start trying to intermingle all of them in a way that was an effective journey for somebody. And so now, like 3 years later, I'm still teaching my Sisters Enchanted classes. I am dancing with not only students of mine who've stayed with me for a while, but, I found a group of fabulous women in Bozeman who we get together and we dance, and we all have similar interests. And I just feel like I'm on my way now. Like, I feel this untethered feeling that I had before, I don't have anymore. There are some days when I'm not really sure what my next step is. And I won't say I'm very clear because you still have your moments where you're like, how do I feel about this? But I feel like I'm much more clear on who I am and what I want and, what I think my purpose is here. It helped me a lot to find a purpose. I was kind of lost without a sense of purpose for a couple of years. And so, and movement has been an integral part of that. The idea of thinking about it in your head and the idea of feeling it in your body are just two really different experiences. And just as an example, I just taught a class for the Sisters Enchanted last week. And I basically had people come in, it was like it's springtime. This is when we plant our seeds, but let's prepare our soil first. So I was like, I want you to think about an emotion that is very dominant in your life that maybe you're not happy about, an emotion that maybe kind of gets in the way, or maybe like if you're angry and you don't want to be angry all the time, or if you're sad and you don't want to be sad, what is that dominant emotion? And we kind of talked about different, I was like, the first thing is to just identify it. And so we talked about different emotions and what some of the signs are of them. And then we did an EFT tapping exercise where it was first feeling that emotion and letting it come up and letting it rise to the top and acknowledging it and kind of sitting with it and understanding why it's there. And then it was about, healing it and releasing it. Because I grew up in the Midwest, and so we were Stoics. And so, if you're mad, it's not okay to be mad, so you just keep your mouth shut. You don't ever process it. You just don't say what's on your mind. And so we did this exercise where, it was like feel the emotion, let it come up, and let's release it. And then we did a movement dance that had a lot of shaking and brushing off to, like, get rid of it. And then we did an exercise where I did a visualization with them, and I had them hugging themselves. And it was about, I love who I am, and I love where I am, and I don't have to be perfect, and I don't have to have it all figured out. I can just love myself for who I am here now. I had like 4 or 5 students after, like 2 of them spoke right after the session, and then I had people posting things saying that, like, I didn't even know I needed that, and that helped me so much. And that gave me such joy. Like, that was part of sharing my journey. Mm-hmm. And it gave me such joy to see that it worked for them. Because I do think that different things work for each of us. And you never know if what worked for you will work for somebody else. Mm-hmm. But it was really gratifying that it did. And frankly, when I was doing it, I love doing it too. And I can't, when I'm leading a session like that, I can't necessarily let myself go fully into it because I have to be thinking about what's coming next. Mm-hmm. So it's more about like when there's one piece of it where I'm just experiencing it for myself and it's powerful for me. And then when I say, now I'm ready to share this, then it's kind of a different role, and it's still extremely, God, I'm going to use all my corporate words, effective. It's like it still feels really good in my body to be doing it, but it just feels different.
We can find clues or signposts for ourselves in Deenya's transformational process, clues and signposts that will help us recognize the process in ourselves. First, Deenya describes a crossroads, her retiring from the corporate world. At this crossroads, she has a multitude, perhaps an infinite number of choices for where she might go next. What she chooses to do is to be still and observe. Deenya describes taking stock of where she has just come from. She observes what worked and what didn't, becoming aware of truths about herself and her life path thus far that were not evident in the moment. Next, she looks at where she is now within the context of her journey and choices so far. The process of observation and introspection takes time. Deenya allows the time she needs to know where she has been, in order to know where she is now, because it is from here that she will move forward. Being patient, allowing for the process when we are in transition, is perhaps the most vital and most difficult choice to make. The second most difficult choice to make is not to leap once we understand where we are. Deenya allows the path to unfold, one step, not leap, not dash, one step at a time. From that first step, the next leg of her life journey begins to unfold. She describes many crossroads along her unfolding path. She meets each juncture with curiosity, the courage to explore, and a growing practice of checking with herself. Deenya uses her emotions and her body sensations as a compass to help her stay connected to the internal wisdom she is uncovering, nurturing, and growing along the way. She also observes her progress and finds ways to measure and honor how far she's come. Once she perceives that she is confident of her next steps, Deenya embraces a new role of accompanying other seekers, sharing her deepened knowledge of how to read the trail, how to consult the inner compass, and how to navigate the rough breaks that are a natural part of the trek. Deenya ends this sketch of the journey with an important message. She describes the difference in the feelings she has when she explores for herself and the feelings she experiences when leading her students in an experiment to help them on their journeys. The first is her experience of being her purpose, while the second is a feeling in response to an act that is an outgrowth of her purpose. Knowing the difference is the biggest step of the journey. Are you curious about your purpose? How does it feel to consider that our life purpose might be something we are rather than something we do? Are you wondering if it would be helpful to connect with someone to witness and support you as you examine your relationship to your life purpose? I would be delighted to connect with you via my website or email or on Facebook at Caravan of Dreams MT. Our music is used by permission of the artist, Sean Phoenix. Thank you, Sean. And thank you to Bozeman Public Library for the Workbench Sound Studio located in beautiful downtown Bozeman, Montana. If you would like to learn more about allowing and how to find your unique style of manifesting, please visit my website, caravanofdreamsmt.com, or email me at dancingwitchmt@gmail.com. This is Ginny Watts, the Dancing Witch. Till next time, blessed be.